Welcome back to Getting Serious. Today we're going to be talking about Dragonriders of Pern and its first novel, Dragonflight. Time for backstory. In the future, man has achieved spaceflight, and so we've traveled to a near star, and we've settled on a planet called Pern. But something about this planet, every 400 years for a cycle of 70 years, there's threads fall. These threads, they burn the landscape. It makes it very difficult to get society really going. Seems like man is stuck perpetually at medieval stage. But the way man has found a way around it is on this planet Pern, there are dragons. Now, if the cover illustration tells any truth, these dragons aren't like your typical Western European dragons. They're a bit more like pterodactyls who can spit fire. Fantasy's weird. So man has to tame the dragons, which they eventually do. They learn to coexist, cohabitate, and so now dragon riders are born. Then the rest of the humans, they either live in the holds, which are castles up in the mountains, or they learn a craft and stick with that craft forever. Now to the plot. Lessa, our main character, after 7 years of planning, meticulously waiting out her time, finally has the perfect night to get her revenge on the man who stole her father's kingdom from her. But just as she's about to execute this plan, dragon riders come. These dragon riders are on the search so that they can either find a queen for the new egg that's about to hatch, or other dragon riders. Checking out this hold, and Falar pushes the king into battle. So they have a sword fight. So Falar, being the well-trained dragon rider, wins, but just as the battle finishes, one of Fax's broodmares goes into labor. She dies during birth, but the son, Jackson, survives. Now Lessa has to decide whether to stay here and claim what's rightfully hers by blood, or to go with the Dragon Riders because she has the potential. But Falar, being the Dragon Rider that he is, being the cunning man that he is, he convinces her to join him, and so then they travel to the nearest hold. And they do this and it turns out these dragons can instantly teleport. It's called Between, and it's just a simple moment of complete dark and cold, and then you're back. Then you're where you need to be. And of course, just as they arrive, the hatching ceremony begins. Celeste's lined up with the other candidates, and she's chosen. 2 years later, Lessa is learning from the current were leader on how to be the proper queen according to ancient tradition. But of course, she's feeling caged and doesn't want any of it. Finally, her dragon is old enough to mate, which means she can be the new queen. However, her dragon Ramoth chooses Falar's dragon Nemeth, and so they mate, and Falar dethrones the current leader. Now, whenever Falar becomes leader, he decides things need to change to be more modern so that there can be more cooperation between the dragon holds and the regular holds and the crafts. Meanwhile, Lessa's not feeling anything for Falar and is still feeling held back, but she does try to make more of her position, even though it's rather inactive. With Falar now in charge, he tries to negotiate more with the Holdmasters and the other members of his weir, but he's eventually convinced to let the Dragon Riders pillage from the nearby holds. This causes the Holdmasters to rally together and try and dismantle the Dragon Riders. What have they ever done for us? However, with intimidation and the right tactics, this fails, and now they have to pay tithes. However, finally fed up with the way she's being treated, Lessa decides to go between the Ramoth. However, how she imagines her homehold is from a while back, and so they actually jump through time. Meanwhile, Falar is going through the old records and trying to find out ways to stop the coming threads, because surely the old masters left some clues on how to take care of this. He eventually discovers that besides just the dragons in the air, there was also ground support, which used flamethrowers, and that the queens could also use flamethrowers. However, the Ancient Ones left a few mysteries that Falar wasn't able to figure out. But it actually turns out the Lessa had jumped 400 years back to the last Threadfall and brought forth the other holds and brought them forward to fight the. Meanwhile, this 400-year jump back, Falar sends his half-brother Fëanor. Meanwhile, this 400-year jump back, Falar sends his half-brother Fëanor back 10 years with a new queen, and so they build a new colony, build more riders up. Then at the perfect moment, those that were 10 years back and those that were 400 years back all coalesce around this perfect battle, and then the story ends. Now, let's discuss what happened. So first, I'd like to say there's some good balanced fight scenes. Like the first battle between Falar and Fax. Both of them have blows. Nobody seems too overpowered, but you do see where Falar is able to have the upper hand. Another good thing about this is that it jumps right into the internal politics. It lets you know how this world works without trying to give you 400 years of backstories. Like, no, here's only this. This is how this works. However, it does have a tendency to tell a person's emotions and tell what's going on in a person's head instead of showing us. So that leads into spelling out a person's characteristics instead of the audience gaining information on how this person acts and what's in of character, what's out of character. But a good point of the story, I feel, is that it does feel, whenever Lessa's thought patterns, it does feel genuinely female. But another point in favor of this story is that you do feel the old relationship between the dragons and the riders, between the riders and the riders. You feel the old wounds. You feel the bondings of friendships. I do have to take away a few points because it does jump time forward, but you don't feel any character growth. They feel the exact same they were 2 years ago or X years ago. Then I have to immediately cancel out those negative points with it has a good grayscale. Now, there are those that are shown to be more in the wrong than others, but a point I do have to give it is that Lessa does make the most of her position. Like, yeah, she is the queen and the queen can't move, but she's able to manipulate the situation so that she does have an effect on what's going on in her world. Now, this is probably more of a cultural difference, but there is a bit of, like, wife hitting, and I'm not really comfortable with that, but that's just me. But I think it really takes away whenever it ends right at the first battle. Like, that is kind of a movie ending, but this ain't a movie, you know? Show us how the battle ends, then you can end the story. Show how the old leaders and the new leaders cooperate or don't cooperate. Then you can build up the tension for the next story, you know? I feel it really slows down in the second act and kind of ruins the pacing for the story, but that's just me. Leave a comment and tell me what you think. A thing that kind of goes with the telling and not showing aspect is that it only presents the key items whenever they're relevant. It doesn't set them up earlier. It doesn't mention them until they're relevant. So I think that kind of detracts because, oh, here's the thing. I'm so glad we just found out about the thing. You can use your MacGuffin better. I think that's all I have to say for now, so I will talk to you next time. Bye.